أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Last lesson we spoke about the sajda of tilawat, if I'm correct, right? And we also spoke about the sajda of forgetfulness. So inshallah this lesson we're starting on page number 110, the sajda or the prostration of gratitude, or known as sajda-tul-shukr. So there's a difference of opinion as to whether the prostration of gratitude is legislated, i.e. something which is part of the Sharia as in prescribed in the Sharia, or is something which is disliked. So there's a difference of opinion in this. Just doing sajda out of namaz, like you see footballers do sajda after a game, UFC fighters doing sajda. It's a whole different story. Inshallah, we'll touch upon doing sajda without wudu on a different day. But generally, just doing sajda out of shukr, there's a difference of opinion. The one opinion is within the Hanafi school that you're allowed to do the sajda of shukr, as long as you're not doing it immediately after the namaz. Sometimes people give salam and they do a sajda. That the ulama have written that is makruh to you. Why? Because the onlooker will think this is something part of the salah itself, or is something sunnah to do. It's not sunnah to do, and neither is it part of the namaz. So just generally doing, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala maybe bless someone with a child, and that person does sajda out of shukr, thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saved him from a calamity. Maybe he was in a serious accident and but he got away without any injuries at all. So out of shukr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he does sajda, and this will be valid for him to do the sajda. But if he was to do it straight after the namaz, the ulama have written it is makruh for him to do so. But the best way, they mentioned that what's the best method to do shukr to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Instead of doing the sajda, read 2 nafal. Read 2 rakats of nafal as a form of gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is the better way to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The blessings that we have, obviously we can't repay or thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enough for the ni'mah and the blessings He has given us. But at the same time, we still have a responsibility as Muslims to continue to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there's different ways we can do shukr to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There's a hadith that mentions when a person wakes up, then for each joint in his body, he owes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala a shukr. I.e. he thanks Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for each joint in his body. And so just doing tasbih of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a form of gratitude and thanking Allah. When we be grateful to someone as a human being for the favor they've done, maybe we buy them a gift to say thank you. Maybe we just go to see them and say, normally, you've done this favor for me, I thought I'd come see you. That is a form of gratitude towards a human being. But towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we can't really give him anything. Right? So it just be the dhikr and the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as a form of gratitude. And doing a shukr to Allah. So reading nafal, reading tasbihat, it would be a form of shukr to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It says an important note regarding the method of avoiding of evil and harm. So Imam Nasafi rahimahullah ta'ala, who's a Hanafi Imam, who's also the author of Tafsir Nasafi, Tafsir Madani, also known as one of the commentaries of the Quran Pak. They mentioned that one of the ways that you can stay away from harm and stress is to read the 14 places in the Quran Pak of sajda, and do sajda after each one. Right, so do sajda after each one, after the 14 ayahs of sajda, and then so you read one, do the sajda, read the next one, do the sajda, read read all 14 ayahs of Sajda Tilawat, and which are on page number 194 they mentioned here. So they listed all 14 of them there, and it's a way of protecting yourself from harm and stress and problems. And so this is the remedies given to us by senior ulama of this ummah, senior imams of this ummah, and we should try to implement them if we have any problems or any tests and tribulations that we're facing. We should use these things that have been prescribed by the ulama. So that's a brief summary of Sajdatul-shukr. Any questions on that? And so that should be straightforward, inshallah. If you have questions anytime, even during the week, just let me know, inshallah. The next topic is the Friday prayer, the Salatul-Jumu'ah. It says the Friday prayer is an individual obligation, Fardul Ayn. Fardul Ayn, there's two types of fard. One is a personal fard, and one is a community fard, or communal fard. Personal fard would be like your 5 daily prayers, like the Salatul Jumu'ah they mentioned here. It's have own personal responsibility, so we can't say, I don't need to read Jumu'ah, my dad went for us today. Right? That can't happen. Whereas for like Salatul Janaza, that is fard, but it's called fard kifaya, i.e. a community obligation. So if some people from the community read the Salatul Janaza, the responsibility of the fard is cancelled from everyone's shoulders. But if no one reads the Salatul Janaza, for example, then everyone is sinful for missing a fard. Right? So fard falls in two categories: a personal fard, which like our 5 daily prayers, and a community fard, which is like the Salatul Janaza. Personal fard, which is known as Fardul Ayn, and that's what they mentioned here, which we need to personally do ourselves. And Fard Kifaya, if some people in the community done it, then it's done on behalf of everyone. It doesn't mean that we don't go. We should still try to take part in the Fard Kifaya, being those select people who are doing this fard on behalf of other people. And that is a station in itself. That is a merit and a reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in itself as well. But Salatul Jumu'ah, it has conditions. It's not like it's not that straightforward as in normal namaz. The time starts, Allahu Akbar, you start praying your salah, which can be done anyway. For Salatul Jumu'ah, there's certain conditions that need to be met for the prayer to be valid. First, being a male. So from this we know that Jumu'ah Salah is not a wajib or fard on women. For them is the normal Zohar namaz that they need to pray at home. And so I know mosques cater for women to pray the Jumu'ah namaz, but it's not really something which is encouraged. I.e. the woman shouldn't be encouraged to leave her house and attend the Jumu'ah prayer. Rather, they should be encouraged to stay at home and read in the comfort of their own home. Another thing they mentioned, the condition is to be a free. So upon a slave, it's not a wajib or fard. So slavery, as we know, it doesn't really exist anymore. There might be some rare tribes or places in the world where there is some kind of slavery still going on. But generally, the slavery has been finished. And a lot of young kids think, when they go to Pakistan and they have people killing the house, they think, no, Saji, we've got a slave at home in Pakistan. Those are not slaves. Those people are getting paid to do a job. So they're like maids and servants who get paid for a job. Right? They're not slaves. Slave is someone who doesn't have his own rights, as in he won't be getting paid. He doesn't have the choice of what he needs to, where he's going to go, what he's going to do. He's in the control of someone else. So a slave and a servant or a maid is slightly different thing. Another thing they mentioned here is resident in a city. So from this we know if you're a traveler, you don't really need to read Jummah. Ideally, if you're in a place where there is Jummah happening, then we should still try to deal so because we hardly attend the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala already. We are already lacking in our worship to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if you don't have a valid reason, then you should still try to attend even the local masjid. So if you've gone to, just say, Manchester or to a relative's house, and most likely they're going to go Jummah as well. So you attend the Jummah with them. And don't just stay there chilling in the house. They're like, this is a joke. I'm a musafir, I don't need to go. Yeah, you like enjoy your Jummah. I'll see you when you get back. Right? That shouldn't be the case. Even though that will be justified in the Sharia, that will be permissible for you to do because you are a traveler. But still, it's not always, this is the fatwa that is jais to do that. Taqwa would be that we still try to attend and try to benefit from the khutbah in the masjid. Sitting at home, most likely we're going to end up watching TV, doing something unnecessary. So we'd rather just attend the masjid. But where this would more, where would we apply really would be if you were camping somewhere. Now you're not going to say, brother, it's Jummah, let's go to find a local masjid that is Jummah. No, you don't need to, you can pray your Zuhr Salah. Sound health is also a condition as well. We have a lot of elderly people, like this is another example of when you don't need to come to the masjid, but the people still do. Right? So they mentioned here, I'll do these 3-4 together. Sound health, sound eyesight, and the ability to walk. So if you look at the elderly, there's a lot of people who can't walk, but they still get a lift to the masjid and come for Jummah. So those people will be excused technically, even if they can get a lift, but they can't walk on their own, they'll be excused from the Jummah namaz. But we still see the elderly coming. Why? It's the experience and the spiritual boost for the week that they want to take benefit from, and hence they attend the masjid. So it's important that we try to still attend the masjid if we can. Ill health would be something that you have an illness, if you go to the masjid, it'll get worse. Maybe you have a flu or a cold and it's quite cold outside. Now if you go outside, your condition will get worse and it will delay your recovery. In that case, then you're allowed to miss Suffa-tul-islam. But it has to be valid. You can't just say, I've got a headache. If I go there, there's going to be a lot of people and my headache's going to get worse. That's not something that you personally believe that will be justified in the court of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the best way to see. If you think, it's easy to fool a parent. When I was young, I was telling my mom this recently, when I was young, what I used to do is, I hope these guys don't do it, but when I knew my mom's coming to wake me up for school, I used to warm my forehead up. I used to be there, and as soon as she used to come, I should go still. She used to come and said, see that kid down there, she used to check, she'd go, oh, it's really hot. Yeah, don't worry, have rest. Yeah, and then you can, when you're young, you try to fool your parents, but the reality is that you can't fool Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So don't try to apply this, that kind of attitude for the youngsters. I know the elders won't do that. For the youngsters, don't try to have that attitude towards Jummah or any worship. In the month of Ramadan, if you're supposed to be fasting and you try to make excuses to get out, so you act like you're ill or you're forcing yourself to vomit, and your parents think, oh, it's too ill to fast. Try to make excuses. But Allah the things that are done for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then He knows if you're being legit or if you're trying to be deceptive. Here also, as a side note, ability to walk. Normally they mention alongside this, it should be in the footnote, but they mention things like if there's heavy snow or dangerous conditions, icy conditions, that it's dangerous for you to even make it to the masjid. Remember, Jummah namaz, now, especially here in the UK, it happens in every corner of masjid. But the real traditional or the proper way of Jummah namaz is that it happens in the Jamia, the main masjid, it doesn't take part or it doesn't occur in the village. So if you live in a grand Pakistan, right, and it won't be in your little, your small villages. The main center or the city center, you could say, like if you're in Mirpur, the khas Mirpur, then you have the small little villages around. The people from the village need to travel. So hence they mention about walking, about traveling, sound health, because it's like going out your way, right? So for here it'll be like for us all traveling to the central masjid to read namaz. Right? So, but because of the circumstances, the way we find ourselves here in the UK, we can't really accommodate such gatherings. Even now here, because of the large amount of people in these areas, they all consider like LU4 will be separate, LU3 will be considered separate, like that. Or multiple places in a city you can do, like this is a city. So if someone's living on the outskirts of Luton, I don't know any village names, but if someone is living in the outskirts, they can't do Jummah there. In these small villages we have around Luton, those people actually need to travel to the city, which is this area, and then attend one of the main Jummahs taking place in the area. So hence they mentioned these reasons. If someone can't go, or the conditions are dangerous for them to travel and make their way there, then that's why they are excluded from attending. So it won't be like a normal village mosque, like even in back home, people try to do Jummah in their local, Mahalla mosque, which is only like 5-6 houses are there, and they have their own masjid. They need to go out to the main masjid in the city. On page 112. So these first ones are 111, 111. Those are for, it says, conditions which make it fard upon you. So if you fulfill these conditions, then it's basically fard on you. The next one here is what makes the Jummah itself valid. One is how it becomes fard on you, which are the first conditions, health and so on. The second part of this page 112, it refers to how or where the Jummah itself becomes necessary to read or valid. This is the conditions that validate the Jummah itself or the following. It says a city or its outskirts. So like I mentioned, it has to be in the main part where people gather or people travel to. So it won't be done on the outskirts in a village, or like I mentioned previously. The head of state or the person appointed by him to lead the prayer. So this is one of the conditions that this is something new you might hear, is some ulama say, because it's a non-Muslim country and you're not under the head of state, you could say, you're not under the caliphate, so hence, or a Muslim government, then technically they say, if you look at it, the Jummah is not fulfilled, the conditions are not fulfilled for the Jummah. But the fatwa that's given in the UK is that Jummah is fulfilled because we have that freedom to read the Jummah. So this condition in that sense doesn't really count. Why? Because they've given us that religious freedom where we can appoint an imam and lead the prayer. But for ihtiyat, like just in case, the ulama say, if you want personally, it's not something that's broadcasted on the Jummah Bayan or something. But for students of knowledge, you should know this different opinion occurs. If someone is doing it, don't think that the guy is misguided. That after they read the Jummah namaz, they read the Zohar Salah with the intention just in case, because the conditions technically don't seem to be fulfilled, then you read your 4 fard of Zohar ihtiyat, i.e. with the intention just in case. And so that is one opinion, and that is out there. So some ulama do encourage the students to do that. But that's because the government or we're not under Muslim leadership, you could say. That's point number 2, that's what they're alluding to over there. So here they mention the footnote, if for some reason there is no ruler or there is no permission for him, yet nevertheless a group of Muslims congregate and agree to someone to lead the Friday prayer or the Eid prayer, it is valid, and hence fard still to attend. But I was looking into this a few months back. But the fatwa is that you still need to read the Jummah namaz. The condition, some people use it as an excuse and they don't pray Jummah. And they make this a foundation of them not reading Jummah. But if you look at obviously a fatwa when it's given by ulama, they don't consider just one aspect of something. This is something important to keep in mind as well. When the ulama or a mufti, and it's just not like a normal imam or a alim, a mufti who's qualified to give the fatwa, he needs to know the circumstances of that place. So sometimes you have an imam who doesn't know nothing, the circumstances in the UK, and someone's asking him, in Pakistan, in UK, we have this situation, are we allowed to do X, Y, and Z? And they give a fatwa based on the textual evidence. Yes, they might be technically right, but in terms of the situation the Muslims find themselves in their country, they'll be wrong. So a fatwa has to be given by a mufti who knows the dealings of the area that he's giving fatwa in. So that same mufti, he might say something else in Pakistan, but when he comes to the UK and lives here and sees the circumstances, he'll give a different fatwa. So if both videos are recorded, they're like, what's this guy on about? One day he's saying this, another day he's saying this. But it's the audience you have to see. The same with a lot of YouTube videos, people misquote a lot of ulama and they say, look what he's saying here, why is he saying such a subtle opinion, why is he being so lenient? You don't know who he's addressing in the first place. His audience might be non-Muslims that he's trying to encourage them towards Islam, so he's giving them like a leading opinion that will encourage them come towards Islam. But obviously the camera's just on him, and then people post our videos saying, well, look at this Mawlana and he doesn't know what he's on about, and he's giving these fatwas on YouTube. But so it's important, even if you see a video online, even like you get these question and answer videos that show 1 minute clips, 2 minute clips that people are forwarding. You don't really know the context of that question, how in one light that person is asking the question. Previous 2 or 3 questions could be linked to that question. So hence when they ask that question, you might have the question and answer there, but the previous 2 questions or the information that you've got might be more detailed or leading up to that question. So now just listen to the question and answer, you might get the wrong information. So it's important that these things are taken into consideration. Hence, so you might come across that opinion where some people say you don't need to read Jummah. That is not the fatwa that is accepted. That's not the fatwa that is given in the UK. We still need to attend, because if you look at the bigger picture, some guys only come to masjid for Jummah. Right? If you say no Jummah, they're going to be like, no namaz, they're going to come on Eid once a year. Right? No, you have Jummah Muslims. Those same Jummah Muslims are the same Eid Muslims who attend Eid namaz. If you cut the Jummah out the equation, either they're never going to read namaz, because after 1 year, who's going to read Eid namaz? The guy's going to tell them, let's go for barbers, get a haircut, let's get a fresh trim, forget the Eid namaz. Right? So, most likely, that person will abandon the namaz altogether. Hence, the ulama give the fatwa that it's still necessary for the person to read Jummah in the UK. Another is the khutbah itself. The khutbah of Jummah is given before the namaz, the khutbah of Eid namaz is given after the Eid prayer. And so, if the khutbah is not given and the imam forgets and he does the Jummah namaz, the Jummah salah is invalid. The khutbah needs to be done before the Eid prayer. And it's sufficient even if the imam for khutbah, he says Alhamdulillah, sits down, stands up, says Subhanallah, and sits down and starts the Jamaat. That is sufficient, but it's disliked to do. Right? You might find yourself in a situation that there's 4 guys here, we're qualified to do the Jummah namaz, and we're about to do it, but none of us have got either know anything too extra to read, we're not really confident how to do the khutbah, so you can just say, Subhanallah, walhamdulillah, wa la ilaha illallah, wallahu akbar, read, third kalama, do a bit of tasbih, praise Allah, do durood sharif, that'll be sufficient for you, and your khutbah will be sufficient in that sense. So keep that in mind. Sometimes you might find yourself, somewhere with your friends that you need to do Jummah, and the condition for Jummah is, but they mentioned the next point anyway, that there should be at least, apart from the Imam, 3 other people. So Jummah, the minimum congregation is 4 people, 3 followers and 1 Imam. If there's 2 followers and 1 Imam, you can't read Jummah, you have to do Zohar namaz. Right? So the minimum requirement is 3. So if you find yourself in that situation, then and you don't know any khutbah and you're kind of confused, then just do some tasbih, read some durood sharif, and each khutbah will be sufficient. At least you've read something and fulfilled the minimum requirement. Another condition here is general permission for Muslims to join, and this is known as Jummah can't be led in a place where people are restricted to attend or people are prevented from attending. If you stop anyone from attending, then that place where they held Jummah, that Jummah is invalid, unless they have somewhere else to attend. Right? So if there's, for example, we're doing Jummah here, and this is the only place Jummah is happening, and Siddiq and Ghulam walk in and like, you guys get out, we don't want you here. You're banned from reading Jummah here. Without a valid reason. Obviously, if you know that maybe they are harmful or they're dangerous to other people's health and safety, that's a whole different ballgame. But if you just don't like them and say, you two can't pray with us, get out of here, you're not banned from here, then all of our Jummah will be invalid. Why? Because we've prevented or stopped anyone from who is allowed to attend, we've stopped them from attending. Right? And so it's important that this condition be kept. This is a very important condition. Like some places there might just be a school, and we are know Jamaats happen in schools. They'll be allowed to do Jummah in a school. Obviously the children won't read, otherwise they won't read, going back to the first point. So they're allowed to do the Jamaat in school, but you would say that people are prevented from attending. If I knock on the school and say, the Jummah time, let me join the students, they say, health and safety, get out of here. So now this condition is not fulfilled, but it's also backed up with, there's a local masjid where I'm allowed to attend. So if I try to attend 2 new boys, and this obviously they're going to turn me away from the door, they say, get out of here, it's only for students. And we can't say to them, but you know what, the Jummah doesn't count here, you're not giving general permission to the public, so this Jummah Salah is invalid. No, if the person has an alternative place to go to, then it's fine. If they don't have an alternative place to go to, then the Jummah altogether is invalid for those people if they're turning other people away or preventing people from joining. Any questions on that so far?
You said if the person poses a threat to other people, you're allowed to not allow them to read Jummah with them. For example, you go to Choni boys, you're considered a threat to them, so wouldn't the Jummah still be valid?
No, it will be valid, I just said that. Because, no, you're right. It will be valid because there's an alternative place for me to go to anyway. Right? But when you're saying I'm considered a threat, if you go to a school and they'll say you consider a threat to the kids, that's not a valid threat. A valid threat would be that you've been doing something and you've been caught already beating someone up, whatever it is. Now there has to be a valid reason. They're not going to just see your face and they say you're a threat. That's a discrimination towards someone. Right? So that can't happen. So they won't turn you away because of a threat. They'll turn you away because they'll say, by law we can't let anyone in. Right? Even though they might be saying that you possibly could be dangerous or something possibly could happen, but they're not turning you away because you're dangerous. They're turning you away because of the law and the health and safety of not letting any external person who's not like has a DBS check, like they have security checks that are done, or people who work with children. Then if those checks are not done, then obviously they won't let you around the children, and that's why they don't let you around. That's obviously part of the law of the land as well. The next few points I've already touched on. They also mention here that there's 2 khutbahs for the Jummah Salah, and the Imam is to sit between each one, and they should be done in a state of wudu, and the khutbah itself should be done while standing. And this is something basic that we see every Jummah anyway. The Imam stands up, does the first khutbah, takes a sits down for a few seconds, and then he stands up for the second khutbah, and that is basically simple and that's valid. So here there's something important. Obviously in the UK we normally don't hear the azan of Jummah, right? But it is wajib that if you hear the adhan of Jummah, there's 2 azans given. And here normally we do the first one before the sultans, and then the second one we do before the Jamaat or before the Imam does the khutbah, right? There's 2 adhans for the Jummah namaz. The first one technically is when Jummah time starts, i.e. Zohar time starts, the adhan is given to tell people, okay, it's Jummah today, make your way to masjid. And then the second one is given at the time for the khutbah and Jamaat, right? When the first one is given, the ulama, it is wajib, necessary that you make your way to Jummah. So if you're doing any business transactions, all those things should be stopped, right? And you start preparing for your Jummah. But obviously in a modern context, in a Muslim country like Saudi, you normally see in places like Dubai, you still see it there in some places where there's not a lot of foreigners. But in Haram Sharif, or I know you see in Pakistan this happens, when the first azan is given for Jummah, people just close their shops and say Jummah, or they take a day off on Jummah generally in most Muslim countries. But what they'll do is when the adhan of Jummah is given, they'll close the shop and they'll say we'll open after Suffa-tul-islam. And that is the proper way that it should be done. But in the UK, obviously it doesn't work like that. A person is working a 9 to 5 shift for someone, for a company, he's not going to say to the guy, the first azan's done, mate, I'm going home. He's going to say, yeah, stay home then, I'll get someone else for the job, right? So in these circumstances, if he's able to attend the Jummah without sacrificing his job, because it might be in a situation that if you take time out for Jummah and you might lose your job, which might lead to you not being able to fulfill your farm of feeding and providing for your family. So, or it might require that you stay on site for your due to health and safety. So if you're in a place that you have to watch over youngsters, children, the elderly, you might be working on a hospital ward, you won't leave that place. Why? Because now you have a zimmedari and responsibility on your shoulders, right? So for that person, he will continue his job, and in those circumstances, if he's required to be caring for someone, he can miss the Jummah in itself altogether anyway. But to keep that in mind, if you have your own business, if you're, like these social media influencers say, are you tired of your 9 to 5 job? Do you want to, earn this 10k salary? All these high dreams that they give people, right? But if you are on that mindset, then in that case, when it's Jummah time, you pack up and you make your way for Jummah on the first azan, and you prepare for Salatul-Jummah, and then you read your Jummah and then get back to work after that. But other things that you might also find yourself in, Imagine you're traveling home, and modern day business transactions can be done on mobile phones, on people selling on eBay, Amazon, whatever it is, right? So you'd say that you're still permitted to do that transaction, because that transaction is not stopping you from heading towards the masjid. You might be using a public transport, but if it's stopping you in the sense that you're driving your own car, now you have to park up, then do the deal on the phone, and then drive to the masjid, then that should be delayed and postponed. And then obviously, in the hukam of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it has its own barakah, it has its own blessings, and you will also, you might see that the deal never went through, and like, oh, because of Jummah, man. If I was only there at Jummah time. No, it's not because of Jummah, it wasn't meant to be. And there was also a blessing in it why that thing didn't happen. And just because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Quran al-Pak that perhaps you might like something, but it's not good for you. Or perhaps you might dislike something, but it's good for you. Allah knows, but you don't know. So sometimes things don't happen the way we want them to. We're really trying to do something, achieve something, and it doesn't happen. We're trying to buy a house, we've got all the money, all the paperwork's done, everything's done, and then the guy backs out last minute. We're like, oh, this was the best deal for me, man. This was the ideal house for me. It wasn't the ideal house because it didn't happen. And whichever one works out for you, that's where the barakah is. That's where the benefit for you is. So for Jummah namaz, keep that in mind. But here, obviously, everything's fast-paced in the UK. You don't even have time to. The second azan in our masjid, first and second are done within 10 minutes here, right? So there's not much difference in that sense. And so most likely you're already going to be here. But this is like in a Muslim country where the adhan is given publicly on the street, that you can hear the adhan, and then obviously the timing of the country will be around Jummah in a Muslim country. Whereas in a non-Muslim country, obviously Jummah we have to try to fit it within our schedule. Whereas in a Muslim country, generally the Friday, because of the virtue of Jummah, the country kind of aligns with the prayer itself. So work routines and all that we're going to work around on the Jummah prayer. Another important thing here is to keep in mind is that when the Imam when the khutbah is given, you are not allowed to talk. Right? You are not allowed to talk. You can't even, people when they do this on the name of Muhammad. So when the adhan for Jummah is given, you're not even allowed to do that. If someone gives you salam, you blank them. You totally ignore that person. You just focus on, and that's not from the point the adhan is given. As soon as the Imam makes his way to the minbar, that's when that ruling starts. And so you need to keep that in mind. No matter what it is, you don't be entertained by that unless you're doing something which is not supposed to be, like sitting in the wrong place, and then someone who's doing security, they're allowed. I remember when I was in madrasa, we used to do security in the car park sometimes in the evening for Taraweeh time, so no one damages people's cars and stuff. There's no lights there, and this guy walked past me like, Molvi, aapko namaz nahi padne tha? They're sending us inside. Yeah, they're standing outside the car park doing security. Yeah, who's reading Taraweeh? And sometimes the ignorance of the people, even if you look at Haram Street, for example, those police officers, they don't join the Jamaat. Yeah. Because why? They have their own responsibility at that time. So you might see, brothers, we have Brother Khalid here at Jummah time, saying movie lines for us, sort your lines out, these brothers helping out, and people looking at them, why is he telling me for? That's not the right way. They have their own job at that time. You have your own job. Your job is to pray and during the Jamaat, so you fix your lines and attend properly, listen to the Imam. So if you sit in the wrong place, he's most likely going to obviously tell you, move out the way, you're blocking the fire exit, you're doing this, X, Y, and Z. And so you'll obviously have to listen to that. And so another thing, just to finish off, is the general adab towards bayan. When a dars is being given of Quran and Hadith, it's makruh to start off the namaz. Nafal as in any kind of ibadat that we read, tasbihat. Some people be thinking that some imams do this as well. Like you go to a mehfil and a sheikh's giving a bayan and the other sheikhs just in the reading tasbih. There's not time to read tasbih. There's time to listen to the Quran and Sunnah that's being taught to the people. Equally, the way the people need to listen, other imams who are present in a mehfil, they equally need to listen as well. So this includes reading tasbih, this includes reading Quran Park. Some people, when I've been giving a Jummah speech, they have the Quran on their phone and they be reading Quran Park, and I'm doing my bayan, or they grab the tasbih, they be reading the tasbih. Some people start the sunnahs. It's makruh to read any other ibadat where a bayan is being given. Yeah, so something to keep in mind. This happens every Jummah, and then feel like telling the people off when it's too late. They start before, and that if you tell them that the next person can start. But generally, if you know someone who does that, then you should remind them that they shouldn't be reading anything while the bayan is being given. I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants us all the tawfiq to do Amal and this wa akhiru da'wana. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen.